Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? So, strange video today. Weird video. Makes sense, you know, given that I am painting Mysterio, or that I finished painting Mysterio, because I think it's done. I think the concept is done. I think it's been communicated. So, if I feel that what I wanted to convey, what I wanted to come across with the painting, to get across with the painting, um, if I feel it's there, then, it's actually kind of like a super nice way to judge a painting and to understand um, its culmination. The way this painting finished is very different from how I finish any other painting, I feel, because it kind of became more of an object and less of a painting, which is actually super, super interesting. But I'll show you what I mean by that. So I know that this is a strange way to display the painting, but I actually think this is pretty cool. There's like an unveiling to the painting. So it unravels. I think this is pretty rad. I think it's pretty cool. So, why all of this? And let's start from the beginning. Start from the beginning. I may be butting into the frame a little too much today, so I apologize for that. So let's start from the beginning. Nope, that's not there. Wait, why is this not here? Okay, right here. So that was the color study for this painting. And well, one of three color studies. So at that point, I just wasn't really understanding what I needed to do or what I was trying to do. It was just like a bunch of visual possibilities for the character, and I eventually landed on that one because I thought it was really cool. I think I described it as this kind of solid as an oak character, very silent, kind of like in the back in the shadows, almost like a bodyguard. He wouldn't utter a word. It was just like this mute, and I loved that idea. I really liked this kind of lumbering, kind of ogre like character, maybe like, I don't know, 7 feet tall or something like that. It's pretty cool. I think that's a really rad um, kind of way of understanding Mysterio. So after a lot of deliberation, because the other two options were quite eye catchy, and I think they would have made for good paintings. But after a lot of like thinking about it, I was like, nope, I'm gonna land on this one. That's what I want to paint. And I mean, this sketch is about not even two of these, just to give you like a sense of proportion. So after deciding upon this one, I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. There were a lot of qualities that I had here where I was freehanding it that I think I lost from, when I initially approached the bigger painting. And this is the first pass on this painting. So this would have been session one on this particular painting. And I thought, well, it's nice. I think I'm getting like some sense of faithfulness that's being born from the color study, from the sketch. So that's kind of nice. The one thing that I did was I tried to kind of push the axis a little bit. I wanted to puff his chest out, kind of push his belly out, like that torso, that really kind of wide torso, just puff it out, push it out, and I thought that would make him like a little more self-indulgent. That's what in my brain I thought. It was like, okay, this character is pretty much a con man, and I don't know, he gets hired. He's like a hired goon, and he just I don't know, drinks too much wine and cheese after doing whatever he's hired to do. So I was thinking that sort of, that was the gesture, the sort of the man inside, like all this draping, and obviously inside the bowl, the globe. Um, and I kind of liked it initially. I was like, okay, but I thought the arms were dangling a little bit too much, and I don't know. I felt, well, I don't know. Maybe the puffing of the chest is just a little too much. So I made some adjustments, and I adjusted the axis of the body. I adjusted the way the arm sort of naturally kind of fell down, dropped down, and and I liked it. I liked it. I mean, the painting was fine, but there's nothing more than I discussed than catching myself saying, "Oh, the painting's fine. It's fine." It's like I look at it and I go like, "Oh, it's okay. It's okay." And I saw it, and I was like, okay, what is there to do, from now on? And I thought about, this part of the kind of velvet robe slash cape. It's kind of like a mix of both. Uh, excuse me. And I was like, yeah, I'll try to make some of these folds look a little bit cleaner and more velvety, and I don't know, give them like a sheen to them. Um, um, and I was like, yeah, sure, and maybe the orb up here, just work on it a little bit, more. But it was just, I don't know, Something happened from idea, from that initial concept, that where I think I was just trying to identify like the physicality of him, that just got diluted while I was painting. And this is the thing. Sometimes we think that first painting, that first encounter, this little painting that I actually really like, and I love that it exists. It's not, sometimes we think like, oh, but this didn't come to fruition, or this didn't do its job well enough because the final painting is not as good, or it doesn't build up to the expectation that this actually created, that this small painting created. And I get it, at times we kind of hope that that's what happens, but there's an energy to making small paintings and studies that is almost like impossible for a bigger painting to sort of live up to. It can't just take that lightning in a bottle and say, okay, I'm going to extend it tenfold, and all that energy, I'm just going to try to keep it all over the place in this image that is significantly bigger. Variables are different. The way you paint it is different because the physical aspect of how you paint something is different. Your tools are different. The amount of paint that you use is different. So you would have to like extrapolate, the sizes of the brushes, the amount of paint, the distance that you have from your painting, to try to paint this with that energy, to try to convey that energy into this size of a painting. We almost would have to become giants and see our larger piece as smaller once again, and just paint with like brushes that are as big as trees to try to cover as much ground, and to give us like a sense of wholeness, uh, or the sense of wholeness that we were able to sort of tap into when we did this little sketch. So it's very, very difficult. There is like sacrifice that happens when you try to paint bigger now based on a smaller scale study. But it's also like a sacrifice that acknowledges that yes, some things are lost, but hopefully some things are gained with the ability to, I don't know, elaborate on things, articulate a little bit better certain aspects of the painting, render form, a little more intricately. So there are things that you can do in a larger painting that are I mean, they're not replacements, or they're not things that are grown from the very same things that are present in a color sketch. No, they're different, it's like the color sketch sets some things in motion, but then the large painting grows itself in its own way. So the variables are quite different. Just the very nature of the paintings is quite different. So I've grown to understand that in my painting, this will always look different than this. I mean, this is significantly different from this, but we'll get, we'll talk about that, like in a second. But I've grown to accept it in my own painting, and more importantly, I've grown to accept it in, like, amazing examples of studies done throughout painting history, which I adore, and I always have. I'm always lucky to have the larger painting to compare to, so I can have those two experiences. And I've seen those, in real life. I've seen both, like, small sketches and large paintings in real life, and it's a fascinating experience. So to try and understand, like, what the small painting was trying to solve, or what was trying to propose for the large painting, and how the large painting sort of took that torch and then ran in sometimes a completely different direction. But it's really great to have those two examples available to us throughout art history. And if we can see those in real life just to get a sense of dimension, it's a wonderful gift. So I've been accepting of the fact that there is a transition that happens from here to there, and things happen. Things happen. Now, the transitioning was not so obvious with the sketch and with the rest of the uh the two sessions, with the two first sessions that I did of this painting. But here comes, the caveat. Like, this is where the issue lies in for me. So let's say goodbye to wonderful color sketch. I love that it exists, but let's say goodbye to it, because it's no longer relevant in the telling of the story of this painting. This is where it started, but it is no longer needed. So goodbye, Mysterio color study that I love. Thank you. And it gives us an opportunity to look at this painting and what it is about. Um, I think what happened to me was something that is quite regular, which is just this feeling of like dissatisfaction, of just being, at some point enamored by the idea of something that you were doing, and then, realizing that that attraction that you felt for this concept, this initial concept, just kind of slowly dies down. It's like a flame that is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's very sad to realize that, you can feel excited about something, like genuinely excited. There's honesty in that excitement when you are, designing for the first time what you want to paint, when you're approaching a color study. It's like you feel you have all the energy that's necessary to carry this, endeavor on. And as you're painting, something happens. Maybe the things that were super attractive to you are now just mundane. Maybe because you're looking at everything through a experiential microscope. So not just quite a microscope where you're looking from outside, from the outside in, but you are experiencing what is happening, like the making of this thing, but you're also focusing in on the little aspects that are, part of the makeup of your painting. So you're hyper aware of all these little, elements that make up your painting. And maybe because you're so aware, you start to find flaws that at times they're not visible to other people. At times they don't matter, but because we are so self-critical, we try to convince ourselves that they do matter more than they should, or they honestly do matter. So there is that aspect of it that we become like our worst critics when we're making our own paintings, and we lose track of the things that we were doing. We lose objectivity. So it's good that somebody else comes along and tells us, like, hey, that thing that's bothering you, it's not as bad as you think. It's barely noticeable. Really, it's like negligible. So don't just make like a problem where there's nothing. There is such a thing, and I do think that that usually happens when we are so laser focused and we have tunnel vision on our own work. But there are other moments where that thing that was driving you is just gone, or it's not there. It sort of hops to another place. Or in a way, I kind of think that it grows itself. Like the thing that you wanted to do also develops and also grows and also changes into something else as you are painting. We sometimes think that that initial thing that we want to do has to be set in stone and it is eternal and it has to be the source of this, ongoing flame that is going to give us the energy to do this whole thing. But what we don't consider is that perhaps this thing that is our source, our fountain, it changes also. It morphs, as you do the painting, as thoughts settle, as ideas settle, because excitement sort of creates like a storm. And then eventually things settle. And when they settle, you have clarity and you can see things for what they are. And in my case, I just felt that it was just too simple. It was just too, you know, he was just a brute and he's there and that's it. In his stillness, there was a beauty, like there's beauty. So I really loved that he was kind of like a monolith of sorts, a movable object of sorts. Um, and I do like that. I do like that sense of that quiet stillness, which I do think is still being communicated. But everything else was just painting. Everything else about this was just me saying, okay, now I have to paint it. Because I seem to have solved, or I seem to have reached something that I like about the character, but now everything that's kind of missing, I'm trying to make up with it through painting. It just seemed like it. So, like the ideas were there, but then I was saying, okay, I guess now I have to paint this area a little bit better. But in my brain, I'm always like questioning, is that going to make the final painting better? Like, is that a guarantee that the final painting is going to be better? Better in the sense, like, not nicer. I mean, sure, that little bit of fold in the drapery would have been nice. But that's pointless. Like, does that make a better painting? If it does, great. So if the painting needs like a really wonderful fold there meaning wherever there is, um, then great. Paint like a kick-ass fold, and that is your painting is dependent on that, and that's a crucial moment, a crucial instance in your painting. Great, do it, go for it. But if you visualize it, and if you think, okay, so I'm gonna spend like 2 more hours, 3 more hours just painting these little folds and giving it like a satiny, I don't know, velvety kind of feel to them, is that better? Is that better? And my brain was like, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's a nicer fold, but does it make a better painting? Does it change the feeling of the character, the overall kind of essence of the character? Does it alter it in a way in which we were progressing towards the idea that we wanted to communicate in the first place? No, not really. Not really. Like when I thought about it, I was like, well, no. So that's when I have to catch myself and say, so what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, what is going on? You're painting it because, I don't know. What's the reason here? Because you have to paint folds? Like, is there no other way to say folds other than just rendering them to the point where you feel like, okay, this is as good as I can render something, so I think I'm done. So is there no other way? And obviously my painter brain that loves, a whole wide spectrum of painting says, of course not. There's like, a myriad of ways to paint folds. There are as many ways to paint folds as there are, wonderful artists, throughout painting history. So of course not. There's tons of ways in which I could have solved those moments. But in my mind, it seemed like all I could do was just follow this kind of very straight path to the culmination, the sort of formal culmination of the painting, and then reach a point where I was like, I guess I'm done. I guess I'm gonna call it quits here because yeah, I think that's it. That's where the idea is finished. I don't know. But then it's really good that your brain is not satisfied with that. And I guess that is the core concept of what we're talking here. That I'm not satisfied. I am not satisfied. I'm not. I'm not. And it has nothing to do with I'm not satisfied with how well I can paint something. No. Trust me, that's not it. I know how well I can paint something, which means I'm hyper aware of the limits of my ability. I know how well I can paint a hand or how well I can paint a fold. I know. I know exactly how well I can paint it. And I know when I have to push myself to do that. And I know when doing that is going to be fruitless. It's going to be absolutely pointless, other than communicating the fact that I can paint something, which is kind of dumb because I don't paint to show people that I know how to paint. Like that's kind of stupid. So, um, so if I look at the prior kind of stages of this painting, and I'm not satisfied, my brain is then firing on all cylinders, saying, "Okay, you're not satisfied. What are we gonna do? Like, what is there to do here?" If it's not about just painting something nicer, painting something better, articulating it a little bit better, if that's not going to do anything for the painting, what else is there to do? Because the other option in my brain is just doing nothing. It's just like, arms crossed, pouting, frustrated, complaining and huffing, puffing, like, kind of rambling and just cursing at the air and just saying, no, I did a bad painting. No, it doesn't, I don't like it anymore. And that's it. It's like, blah, 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 blah. But that's, I mean, what growth is there in that? Nothing. None. So I very quickly just put that to the side because there's no point in doing that. Or at least, if you want to like feel sorry for yourself for like 2 seconds, fine, do it. Curse, yell at the sky, believe that you're helpless and that you have no talent and that is what's stopping you. And okay, be done with that. I'll give you 4 seconds, not 2. 2 is like too little. But 4 seconds of feeling like you're nothing. Fine, get over with it. Like, okay, do it, whine. Okay, you're done? We're good? We're good. Okay, so after doing that, and maybe you feel like you let it go, you let some of that out, then tell your brain, okay, now what can we do other than, whining? What can we do? And in my brain, I was like, well, let's keep this idea growing. Let's keep this idea moving. If what's at the source of my dissatisfaction is the fact that I kind of hit a brick wall, maybe I'm supposed to just, kind of tear that wall down and keep going. That wall was created by the expectation that I had with my color study. So let's just tear that down and let's say, what else is there? Just keep moving, keep going, keep going. And so I just started kind of imagining like a narrative to this character, which was, again, growing from the things that I kind of liked. So I thought, well, what if he's like, yes, a goon for hire, and he does his thing, whatever he's hired to do, or he does his own bidding, but I kind of like the idea of him being just the kind of brains and brawn of like some other, overlord that is hiring him, or some I don't know, whoever like dark character, powerful character that wants to hire Mysterio, whatever he's hired to do. I was hoping that he could be like a character that does whatever he has to do, and because he's a master sort of manipulator and he can create all these illusions and he has like all these gases also. He's not quite Scarecrow, which I do think like the better version of Mysterio is one that mixes kind of Scarecrow and Scarecrow from Batman and Mysterio, but Mysterio is a lesser character than Scarecrow, I feel. Mysterio is just a dude. No superpower, no nothing. Like, he's not the brightest mind either. He's just a character that can fool people. But what if he takes that into, what if you turn that to 11? He takes that into, like, degrees that you can't even imagine. So one of the things that I thought of was, what if he's able to sort of men in black people in a way that they kind of know, they have a feeling that they were attacked or they were, I don't know, affected by this huge almost apparition of a character, but then but they can't remember him like quite right. They can't place him. They can't describe him. They can't do anything. And what happens is that the character then becomes more of a matter of storytelling. Like, there are these like fabled stories about Mysterio and people that have been wronged by him, um, trying to describe him, and all he is like a piecing of these like memories of all these victims of all these other people that then get kind of spread throughout the town, and then the townsfolk create this legend about him. And I was like, okay, that's sounding like super super cool, because that actually builds on the idea of him being like undetermined or undeterminable. Is that a word? I have no idea. But the idea that you can't really grasp him, that there's no kind of point in understanding the his physical aspect, or the physical makeup of him. So the more I started to sort of convince myself that this is kind of cool again, like I am believing this story that grows from the color study. So this is like, once again, this is growth. This is something that just keeps going, because we determine the limits. We always determine. We're the ones who say, okay, I want it to stop here. I want the story to stop here, and that's what I'm going to paint. But what if we allow ourselves for the story to keep going and going and going, and we just tell ourselves like, what else is there? What else is there? Tell me, like, tell me what else, and let's keep going and going and going. Um, so I thought, well, what if this now is the sole surviving image of the like the recounting of all of these stories that the victims and the townspeople would spread through generations. Let's say there's like a magical aspect to Mysterio, or let's say Mysterio is just like a thing. It's like uh, uh, um, I don't know, like an outside shell that can be inhabited by many people. There can be many incarnations of this one character. So I thought, oh, this is amazing. This is like Bigfoot. It really is like the Yeti, or it's like Bigfoot, because it's just a matter of stories, and it's just a matter of having that one picture of Bigfoot, that one picture of Nessie, sticking its head out, and then people believing that there is more to this character than that little glimpse of a fuzzy detail that is in that photograph. So this would be the evidence, like evidence in heavy quotes, but let's say that this would be the thing that could convince people about the existence of Mysterio, this one kind of soul image. And I thought about it, and I thought that this image would be like a folded map, kind of, that could be traded, or it could be, it's like almost the way he would be summoned or the way he would be found, because again, he's like, this dude is a complete mystery. He doesn't utter a word. You don't know anything about him. He doesn't say yes or no. He just like shows up when you need him. He does your bidding, like whatever you paid him to do. Then comes back to claim his reward, his money, and then he's gone, and that's it. And I thought of like this little aspect of the painting sort of becoming an object, and this is the cool part, because I was folding it differently, in our first encounter with the unfolding. Um, I thought that this could be like this one thing that you could that people could just hide in their pockets or in their bags, or uh, they would just carry this thing just folded on in their jacket pocket, and then it's been sort of passed through tons of hands and throughout, years and years and years. And it becomes like almost like a calling card, but it becomes like the sole thing that exists and that makes you believe that yes, this is a character that you can invoke, that you can, call upon, or that you can try to attempt to find. And um and so when I thought of that, I was like, yes, this is where it's not just a painting, it's really, it's an object. And if it's an object, it has to behave like an object. It has to have like a tactile quality. It has to be physical. There has to be like a presence to it that's different than the painting. Sometimes the painting behaves like an image, you know. And nowadays that's really really true. I mean, less people experience a painting as a painting than they experience a painting as an image on their phone, on their, computer screen, on their iPad, whatever. But, more and more people with the passing of time are understanding painting in a very strange way, because we're almost going back to understanding painting as image, but it's a very kind of weird transitioning back to the idea of painting as image. Painting as image was something that was true for, like, at least for the West, for the history of Western painting, for thousands of years. So, well, not thousands of years, but let's say, over 1,000 years. But a painting would symbolize, reality, would symbolize what you were supposed to either believe in or fear, or it was a way a story was communicated. But painting and image were one. There was no notion of image if it wasn't through a painting. And that's why it became so insanely powerful, like so incredibly powerful. But if you start, from the 20th century, and obviously, the end of the 20th century, where, photography was like ubiquitous, and movies are ubiquitous, television is ubiquitous, screens, are incredibly eye catchy. Painting now has no responsibility in conveying a reality. Painting is a painting. Painting suddenly became, once again, like, an object. It's just a thing that you go into galleries and museums to experience, and that's it. But then social media came along, and now there's a, almost like a evolution again of painting, where you're not experiencing a painting. I mean, if you think about it, the vast majority of people that are going to see a painting in their phones are never going to be able to see a painting in real life. Like, take for example what Danny and I did for our Painted Lives. These paintings were actually posts on Instagram and videos on YouTube, and only one person, because that painting was sold, only one person would experience all of that, the union of an Instagram post and a video, but only one person out of the thousands that were seeing that image would experience the actual painting. Only one person. So it's very, very strange, but painting started to become like this weird symbiote thing that it could, stretch its tendrils. I don't know. I'm talking about it like it's venom or something. Maybe I should paint venom. But it started to stretch like its tentacles and try to occupy like these other places where images were socialized. And it's really weird. But now people have like a notion of what a painting is, but it's a notion that's been heavily, heavily modified by the way we digitally socialize our paintings nowadays. So, you know, fast forward to this. Well, not fast forward because we are living in the same time, but fast forward in my brain to this moment where I'm determining that no, this is a painting and it has to live as a painting, like painting slash object. It just has to. It has to be folded, for example. It has to be folded and refolded and folded and refolded. And I would love, I mean, I'll do this like if I can't hand this off to somebody else, like if this doesn't sell, let's say, and I have no issue selling paintings, but let's say if this doesn't sell, like the responsibility is on me then to fold it and refold it and shape it and reshape it and have it grow old and be okay with it growing old. So a lot of these things are going to chip, or maybe the paper, the inside of the paper is going to be more and more visible with each fold. Um, the bits of painting are going to disappear. Maybe because I've heavily glazed and fixed and done everything to this painting. I'll go into the technical part of what I did in a second, but since I did all that, the painting is probably going to degrade in a very kind of beautiful way as it grows older. So it's almost like I really love that there is an object that started, and I would love for this object, for the nature of this object, just to keep going and going and going and going. And so if it's a piece of paper that could be folded thousands of times during the next 100 years, I think it's going to be beautiful. And if it begins to tear, and if there's holes in these sections, in between the papers, if all of that happens, oh my God, it's going to be beautiful. It's almost as if the painting and the legend that is trying to be evoked by the painting become one, throughout time. So I think that's so nice. I think that is so beautiful. And that's what made me like the painting again. I realized I don't like nothing that I could have ever done painting wise would have made me like care again for the painting if it wasn't for the fact that I just wanted to, you know, I just wanted to live again because it was dying. It was slowly dying, and I just wanted to find what was exciting about it again. So the way what I found was this, and perhaps if this was in the hands of somebody else, they were like, "No, dude, you just had to paint it better," and maybe they would paint it better, and that image would have been amazing. But that's somebody else's hands and somebody else's brain determining what was missing in this painting. But in my brain, it just had to be this. It just had to be this kind of folded map to nowhere, because the fact that you can hold this sole existing image of this fabled character doesn't mean that you're going to be able to call him or something. There's not like a number on the back of the paper that you can call. Like, that's not what makes him appear, let's say. But it's a mystery why he appears. It's a mystery how he knows, that there is somebody that now holds his calling card. Um, and maybe he's like, maybe people believe he's omnipresent. Maybe people believe like he has to be one of us because he's the only one that would be able to know that, that's the only explanation for him being able to know who is the one that has the image, the map. So I don't know. I love that. I love that idea. I think it's wonderful. I think it kept the image alive. Like, this narrative, and just pushing this narrative is what kept the image alive. So I'm super grateful for it, for giving myself the opportunity to say, what else do you believe in about this image, about this character? And not just the fact that you're going to paint it. Not just the fact that, yeah, sure, paint it, but is that it? Is that where it ends? And for many paintings, I mean, you've seen me do other Sinister Six paintings. You've seen me do like Rogues Gallery paintings. And in many aspects, like some of those paintings, yeah, sure. I'm like, yes, I'm done. Like, this is where I wanted to get to with this painting. You saw me struggle with that rhino painting, which I really, really liked, and redraw it and find a way to sort of access what I wanted. You saw me do it through the electro painting, just having like more of a visual narrative. Like, there were visual cues that spoke about origins and the times of the actions that were happening within the painting. And that's super, super cool. And in this one, I think this one needed this. Like, this is not gonna happen with every painting I paint. I'm not gonna fold it and then cut it and then kind of tape it together, which is what I did. I'm not gonna do that with every painting. Like, there's no point in sectioning another painting. I mean, unless it's strictly necessary, but I don't find it like. I mean, at this point, my brain says, no. This belongs to this painting. This act was born from the fact that you weren't happy with this. And so, and it makes sense for the character, and it makes sense for a narrative, and it makes sense for the idea. And I find it beautiful. I don't know. I find it like a super cool way to keep an image alive, which is what I always want. I just always want things to be exciting for me. So the moment where they die and they're not exciting for me, that's when I have to tell myself, what are you going to do about it? Do something. Do something. Like if all your brain can muster is to think that, you know, there is going to be something good from just complaining, or just thinking that you're not good enough, or you're not worth like the time that this thing would need to in order to be fully realized, or you know, kind of retraced to a right path. Um, if that's what your brain is telling you to believe, I mean, fine, but that's not good. It's not good enough. That's nothing. That serves no purpose for your painting. And if anything, I've learned how to be respectful to the work that I do. And respect sometimes feels like, sometimes it feels like, yes, paint me better. Like, come on, like concentrate a little bit more, you know, think about fundamentals a little bit more, paint me better. Like that to me is kind of like an easy way to understand if something is demanding of you just a little more attention. Like be more focused. Fine. But then there's other times where the painting is telling you, no, it's not about that. It's not about that. But the painting doesn't tell you where to go. The painting's not telling you, no, it's not about painting this hand better, which, by the way, I fucking love these hands. They look like George Lucas. I don't know why that's what entered my brain, but it feels like a very Ashcan school hand. It may be an Ashcan painting that has been in an attic somewhere and nobody knew that it was like a, you know, a really nice painting. But anyways, but I freaking love these pair of hands. I really, really do. I think they're super special. There's something about it. Anyways, but this painting, so the painting doesn't tell you. The painting doesn't give you clues as to like where to go. It doesn't. It's not telling you like, okay, I know you're dissatisfied, but look, there's this little thing here that you can take this path and just make me so much better. It's not. Sometimes it's kind of what I was saying. Like sometimes you just have to go back and say, okay, what was I initially trying to do? And where did I set my parameters? Where did I say, okay, this painting is going to live in this realm that I've determined? And maybe that's a little too constricting. Maybe that was not enough for you. Maybe that was enough for that initial push. But maybe what you understand is that it's not enough anymore. And you have to keep going. And keep going means like your brain just has to say, let me believe in this. First of all, you have to be willing to play. Like you have to be willing to believe your own excitement. If you don't, if you say you're excited, but you're not excited, it's ridiculous. Like you're lying to yourself. So don't go into painting. Don't go into art. It doesn't matter. But if you believe in yourself, if you really believe the things that you feel, that excite you, that push you, that move you, then you have a responsibility towards yourself and say, well, okay, how do I keep going? How do I keep moving? How does this idea just keep evolving if I have to? So what's next? What's next? Okay, what happens if you take one step forward and another step forward and another step forward and try to flesh it out and flesh it out and flesh it out a little bit more? And how does the fleshing out now affect this, you know, idea of a painting that you thought was already sort of established? How does it change it? How does it, you know, how, like technically, how are you going to go about shifting it? So I guess this is a good moment to say, what did I do? Because, you know, from, let's call upon our process images once again. And let's go to the last one. That's the last one. So, because maybe from that to this, somebody says, well, that's a stone's throw away. You just put some, you know, green sort of varnish on top and you're good. Yes and no. Yes and no. So I'll try to go step by step, but it was ridiculous. So in the morning, I just wasn't happy. I mean, and at night when I was looking at the painting, I wasn't happy. And it's terrible to go to bed thinking I'm not happy with the painting that I've done. It's horrible. It's a horrendous feeling. I think if you've ever done a painting that spans time or, sessions or layers, oh, you know that feeling. It's like nothing is cool at night. Nothing. You could watch a show, you could have a conversation. All your brain is saying, like, you idiot, you idiot. You left the painting at a horrendous stage. Like, that's terrible. That's the worst thing you could have done. Because the feeling of leaving a painting in a good moment, oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. You could do anything after that. Yeah, sure, let's go to the gym. Sure, energy for everything. But the opposite is also true. Like, you feel horrible when it's just not working because you kind of convince yourself, oh, I needed more time. I could have spent more time with it. I shouldn't have stopped. I should have. But the reality is that you're blind. You don't see what works or what doesn't anymore. You're so just focused into painting that you don't see it anymore. So next morning I saw it and I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm not happy. And if I'm not happy, I have to do something about it. So I have like a horrendous green, like a bright yellow green, green yellow better. Um, and I had like another. Let me see. Can I look for those? It's probably easier if I show them. If I know where they are. Okay, got one and the other. No, it's the other. Okay, I found one. So it's a light green. So this is like an apple green. I don't know. I don't know what else to call it. But if I say apple green, you guys get it. It says light green. So whatever. But the other one was even more horrible. It's even cheaper than this. Uh, no, I can't find it. I can't find it. But maybe it's for the best. But it's like it's almost like a fluorescent green. So I'm sorry. So I can't find it. Anyways, so fluorescent light green and apple green. So fluorescent light green, I was like, okay, let's cover the whole, fishbowl, and let's make it like, taking some cues from the one of the color studies that I did that was the sort of hanging kind of skeleton head, glowing green skeleton head that I did for the first. I think, did I do that one first? Yeah, I think I did that one first for the color study. I was like, yes, I'm going to use some of that. I kind of like the toxic green, feel to that bright green. So let's just bring some of that here, which is fine. I mean, Mysterio sometimes comes, appears in a puff of like toxic smoke, and he's been known to just either throw smoke bombs or I don't know, use like smoke for some weird purpose. But anyways, so I was like, okay, light green here, and then everything else apple green. Everything else apple green. And I was like, okay, that didn't work. Or it just pushed everything back. Like, I pretty much just scumbled, green, light green on top of this, and a little bit darker green on this whole other area, like surrounding area. And I was like, fuck me. This is the moment when you realize, okay, you're not happy, but now you continue to not be happy and you've ruined the painting. Good for you. I think we've all been there. It's like, okay, because if you're not happy and you exchange it for, I can see the road to happiness from here, great. That's amazing. Yeah. You took a chance. It, momentarily destroyed your painting, but you see the light. You see the tunnel, light at the end of the tunnel, and you're like, hell yes, we can do this. The right path is visible to me. But if you decide to change something because you're not happy, and then you just, vomit all over your painting pretty much, and then you look at it and you're hoping, sometimes you know that something's not going to work, right? You put green on top of it. You're like, oh yeah, sure. Scumbling green over that painting. Sure. Why not? It's going to be perfect. Why wouldn't a sort of velvety violet robe cape, because that's a very that's like an earthy, well, neutralish but violety heavy painting. There's a obvious bias of that hue in the painting, and it's like, you know what would make it better? Green on top. What? What? No, like no. So when I saw it, I was like, oh fuck me, this is not great. This is not great. But my brain was like, you know what? We're tired. We're very tired. Go take a shower, and we'll see what we can do after after you take a shower. And took a shower. Obviously, lamented everything. Felt like an idiot while taking a shower, and then, but tried to like gather courage and say, okay, this is a new beginning. New beginning. So I ruined the painting, but this is just gonna be, you know, this is we're all gonna forget about this moment, you know, in an hour's time, because it's just gonna set things in motion and everything's gonna be amazing. So not quite, but when I saw it, mind you, this is a piece of paper, so it's still quite absorbent. So when I had scumbled this green paint, it was not at all touched to, like dry, touch dry. That's what I'm trying to say. It was not at all touch dry, not even close. This is oil paint. So as much as this thing can absorb, it was never going to be like touch dry. Did it matter? No. What did I do? Took some alkyd medium, took my raw umber, well, Danny's raw umber, took that raw umber out, and I was like, let's give it a glaze. And I was like, in my brain, I was like, dude, you are now the worst thing that you can be, the worst thing that like a painter or like honestly an artist can be, which is impatient. You are now exhibiting the signs of impatience. And the only thing that you can do when you're not patient is to stop. What did I do? Push forward, push forward. Because why the hell are you going to glaze something on top of a fresh scumbled coat of paint? Like, what are you thinking is going to happen? Like, that thing is just going to pick up the green. It's going to be a mess. It's terrible. It's a terrible idea. Horrendous idea. Horrendous. My brain was like, sounds good to me. Perfect. So I was like, all I need is like light touch. Light touch. So I'm not going to scumble and brush like super hard the surface. No, light touch on the surface. Just let some of that raw umber with that alkyd medium just kind of seep through the bits of paint. Let it seep in and move on, move on, move on, move on. You can't stay. If you stay, you pick up paint. Terrible. But just move on. Move, 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 move. So I glazed raw umber, and it did push quite a lot of paint, quite a lot of the green back. Honestly, a lot of what you're seeing is that, which is pretty amazing. I was like, how is this thing holding? How is the green holding? But I guess I had light touch, and I guess some of the paint had set a little bit. Again, this is just a couple of, like, not even an hour and a half later. So some paint had kind of set, but as I could have like picked it up with my fingers. It was essentially fresh. So a miracle happened where that, did something to the painting. It pushed it back. But then I thought, oh, this is a mess. Like, this is just like a bubbling, like, swamp underneath here. It's terrible. Like, all these things are like trying to dry and trying to move. And now I put alkyd medium on top to make them sort of, I don't know what, dry quicker. So what does our brain say? Remember, our brain is already in fuck it mode. It's like, who cares? Like, the painting stability, oh, out the window. Out the window. Who cares? It's really good. It's almost like when you have to you have to walk outside in the rain. Like, there's no stores around that you can, hide underneath, like a little scaffolding or whatever. No, there's nothing. It's just open road and it's raining. And at some point you're like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I was wet. What's the difference between wet and drenched? It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. I have to walk. It's raining. Fuck it. I'm drenched. So this is the drenched part of the painting where I was like, well, it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, and this is where I start to believe my own narrative. It's like, okay, so is this supposed to be a painting that's passed on through time and damaged and, it put on like dirty pockets and dirty hands touching it and hidden somewhere, if that's true, then fuck it. Then go. Come on. Then make it have a life of its own and a history of its own. That's awesome. Set those things in motion. So I was like, yes, this is the thing that I wanted to paint all along. So what did I do? I was like, I'm going to flash dry that layer. So what does that mean? Took it outside with my spray primer, matte spray primer. And I was like, I went to town. I gave it about 4 or 5 layers, 4 or 5 maybe, of primer. You can see some spots. It actually picked the primer because I was, again, if we're going to be impatient, fuck it, let's be impatient. So I was touching it, trying to see where the primer had set, and in some areas it set perfectly, or it attached itself to the painting in some way by some miracle. So, I mean, its primary job is to attach itself. It's to adhere itself to just about anything. So, it's perfect. It's like, hey, this is a swamp of a painting. Please flash dry it. So, dry the outer layer of it if you can, please. And so, 4 or 5 layers of this thing, brought it up, stank. I absolutely hate the smell of like primer or, anything that comes out of a spray can. I freaking hate that smell. It gives me a horrendous headache. So I hated that part, but, I put the painting in like my son and daughter's bathroom in the shower, opened the window, and I was like, okay, let's try to air it out. If somebody gets sick, it's going to be them. They're fine. They're young. So that dried over there. And when it was somewhat stable enough, I was like, okay, I think I know what I have to do. I got to fold this. This has to become the map. So I fold it, halves, then halves, then halves, then halves. And I folded it. And initially, it was just a folded sort of painting. And I was like, that looks cool. Like, I had the courage to fold it. That's super, super cool. There was a weird fold that happened here because I started making like this weird kind of, you know how you're folding paper so many times that at some point it doesn't line up perfectly and you're just like squishing it. It's almost like how every origami turns out. Like, if you see some Japanese amazing dude doing origami, like it looks amazing. When you do it, the fold's it's never like that. It's always chunky. It's always like uneven. It's a mess. So that's what happened here. And I was telling Danny, like, we always speak about like, oh, it has to feel organic, like, folds and wrinkles, and it has to feel organic. And organic usually means chance driven. It has to, if there's a fold that looks cool, it's because nobody was thinking about making a cool fold. It just happened. You just happened to fold it in a weird way or put it in your pocket and then you unraveled it and it just looks amazing. But you didn't try to make it look amazing. So there was a kind of weird fold here. And I was like, are you fucking serious? I even told Danny, I was like, are you serious? The one stupid place where I get like this warpy fold and it's got to be on the head? Because that's kind of like how we are. We are like super daring, but not in places where, it's nice. Like never in the head. And it's in the head. And if it's a big head, never in the eye. Like I want damaging stuff to happen like, outside of the head, but not in the places that are nice. So that one was actually super fun to look at it and say like, ah, shit, like this is real. Like the fact that I'm folding it is making me kind of understand that, hey, things are going to happen and maybe things that you like and maybe things that you don't like. But that's how chance works. If you leave it to chance, which is the most beautiful thing about something like this, then chances are that you're going to see moments where it's wonderful and you're going to see moments where you're like, fuck, it damaged my image. But the object has to prevail before the image. That's the sort of important part about this. So folded it, but then, I have to say, I have to be honest, because this is all about honesty. This warp here, what I did, I was like, I told Danny, I think I can kind of get rid of it. So I took some acrylic primer, some transparent acrylic primer, and I primed the back of the back of the paper, because it actually wets the fiber, and then it actually lets it kind of it expands the fiber as it wets, and as it dries, it shrinks it again. So you can get something. I mean, it doesn't make it better, but it sort of makes it less of a warpy feeling. So I did that. So, and that was a very wimpy thing of me to do, to be honest, because I shouldn't have been bothered by that. So, but I accept it, and this is all about telling the truth. So I accept it. And then while I was doing that, I was telling Danny, what if I cut everything now? What if I cut it and then put like little pieces of tape? What if I tape it on the front, like transparent tape? And I wish I could buy that crystallized, like early 80s masking tape that's yellow. I have no idea what glue they were using, but God, it made for horrible tape, but it made for the fucking coolest object. I wish I could buy rolls of old tape that would still glue, but that would, crystallize. Because if I'm not mistaken, that tape would crack. That thing, you could actually like break it, like almost like a thin piece of glass. So it was amazing. I mean, it has the most beautiful art quality to it. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, if I could just fill this with like tons of little bits of like yellow crystallized tape. I was like, oh, God, this is heaven. That's what I want to paint. Well, not paint. Who cares about painting anymore? But that's the image that I want to produce, the object that I want to produce. But I don't have that tape. And even Danny was like, well, are you going to do it everywhere? Because maybe it could just be like a couple of pieces of tape, or maybe, it's almost like you're trying to, something is breaking off and you're trying to keep it, keep its integrity. So you tape it on one little bit and tape it on a little bit. And she made me think about it. And yeah, I think it would have been a little too obvious to say, like, no, I'm going to put tape all over, all over, all over, little bits. Like, I wouldn't have been dumb. Like, I would have been like, long piece of tape, then maybe three little small tapes, and maybe it kind of crimples up in like a little space, and then I have to like use my finger to push it down. So it would have been very irregular and kind of nice. But I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe that's a little too much, maybe a little too much. Um, and but I think Danny left at this moment, or maybe, yeah, I think so. And what I ended up doing was, I mean, I was like, okay, let's do this. I flipped it over, changed blades on my X-Acto knife, and I was like, let's fucking do it. This is like I'll cut it. So I sliced it into all these pieces. How many pieces? 8, 16 pieces. Um, and I retaped it back together. That's why in the dorso you see all these like almost like cradled little bits of tape, because I had to tape, one by one. I think I started here, these two, and then these two, and these. Anyways, but I started taping it together, and it gave it like a nice kind of sense of like a different sense of unity, and one that I was way happier with, because at the beginning when it was just folded, the paper was, it was beaten up so much that it was just kind of irregular as a whole. But now that you make it, if when you made it 16 little, bits of paper, 16 little rectangles, they each kind of hold their integrity a little bit differently. And when you glue them, they become like little cushions. Like you can almost see how each of them has a way of warping and kind of gluing, well, taping itself to the other one. And that's wonderful. That's why, and this is like impossible to like photograph, by the way, or to reproduce, or to like, I wish you all had the experience that I'm having, touching it and feeling it and folding it, because it's super, super cool. Anyways, but it's impossible to record or to photograph. I've come to terms with that. Like I'm like, okay, this is it's not for me. I need a better photographer to do this, but I can't do it. I can only do it as good as I can do it. So, um, but I love this because it actually speaks about what the object is. I don't want the image to be pristine, because if I wanted the image to be perfect, then there would be no glare, no nothing. It would just be completely legible. But if I want the object to be honest to the nature of it being, again, enigmatic, then this helps. The fact that it just bounces light off, or then you get reflections in some part in it. The fact that it feels leathery and weird. Ah, I love that. I absolutely love that. So imagine, I wish I could have like incense burning underneath this thing. So the painting now gets like a nice kind of patina of soot, and it smells like church. It smells like old church, because there is like a very pagan sort of essence to this image. Like, it would be something that you would find in a very kind of prohibited chapel, or a place, an altar where a ritual was taking place, but somewhere where you're not supposed to be. And and then you see this image, and it's like, oh wow, that's a powerful image. I mean, it's not because it looks like a powerful image, it's just because everything around it has made it super, super powerful. Almost like the Mona Lisa. I'm not saying this is the Mona Lisa. I think this is cooler. But almost like it, almost like the whole legend surrounding that painting, and how, it's been showcased as the most important image in the world, maybe. So this would be the most important image in the underworld, let's say, or the most fabled image in the underworld. But nobody quite knows where this is. And if you've ever been to one of those, like, European churches where paintings have not been restored, and there's like perhaps a wonderful artist with a painting there, like Caravaggio maybe, and then you go see it, and it's like almost impossible to see. It's like a darkened painting, maybe again darkened by soot, or darkened by varnish, by the yellowing of varnish. And maybe it's like in a niche, or in a little chapel that doesn't have like a lot of light going through, or maybe it has light coming through, but and it actually creates like a glare, so you can't really see this image, you can't place it. But then you barely see it, and your brain is like, oh my god, the legend of this image is true. But it's your brain like almost like completing this story. You have been like this sort of faithful follower that has searched for this image, and you find it, and it's not about now finding this icon of an image that's perfect. It's about reaching that point where this thing exists, and it doesn't matter. It's bigger than what its appearance ever kind of could communicate. It doesn't matter. It's an object. It's an object. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think all of those things are cool. All of those things are freaking cool. Oh, by the way, after the spraying, what I did was another layer of, so after the matte spray, the matte primer, another layer of raw umber, and then what is it? A liquid or alkyd medium layer of raw umber. So pushing it back once again. No. I first sanded it when I did spray mount, sanded everything and cut it. Then I sanded it. No. I sanded it first and then I cut it. So, but there was sanding involved. That's what I mean. So another layer of raw umber and alkyd medium, and then a satin varnish. So Galkid, no, not Galkid, Gamvar satin, with a little bit of transparent oxide yellow. What is that called? Transparent lake oxide yellow. Transparent lake yellow oxide. Any of the combination of those. So I added a little bit of that into the satin varnish, and plopped that on last night, hoping that was going to create like a nice kind of satiny version of this. And my initial thought was like, okay, tomorrow morning, another bit of spray mount, like not spray mount. What am I saying? Jesus Christ, what am I going to glue this on something? But no, spray primer. So another coat of that, just to push some of this glare back. But I saw it this morning. I was like, no, this looks leathery. This looks, again, soot. this looks like what paintings feel like in those kind of weird little chapels. So I was like, no, we're keeping this. We are keeping this. And what did I do? I lightly sanded it this morning, very lightly sanded it this morning. Sanded some of these kind of union, bits in the taped paper. So now we get some of this lighter color between them more visible. Because the sanding made kind of like scratch marks, lightly sanded, but because it made like scuff marks better, I took a rag and I just wiped everything with a rag, which I didn't tell Danny, but that rag has to be used just for painting now. But I took a rag and kind of buffed it. So the scuff marks, I buffed them afterwards. So it just gives this feeling of like, I hope that this painting is touched for centuries. Jesus Christ, what am I saying? This is so stupid, but I believe in this because the grease from your fingers is going to make this layer 100,000 million times better and cooler. So this is supposed to happen with the painting, like a whole lot of this. And it doesn't matter if paper starts to show up and if little pieces, little bits of separation begin to occur with like between the little tiles of the paper. It's like that is the life that this painting is asking to live. That is what this painting is about. So again, if there is a brave soul that wants to be entrusted with this, then I would love to pass this torch on to you now. Like, I've set things in motion. If you want to keep doing this, I love you for that. If not, if everyone's like, the fuck are you talking about? That's like a broken ass painting and it's folded into 16 parts and it's going to break apart, before I die. This thing is going to be an absolute mess. No, I don't want to be entrusted with this. Then it is my job, and then I'll pass it on to my son, and then he'll pass it on to Fed. It is my job to just keep folding the crap out of this painting and storing it in like the worst of places so that it is affected by time. And I think it'll be a really cool thing. It's an object, so it'll be a really cool thing, in 100 years. So, but if you want to be a part of those 100 years, that's freaking amazing. I would love for that to happen. So yeah. So this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. It's a painting that is gonna pass hands. Oh God. Now I'm thinking it could be conceptual, and we could just have people receive it and then mail it to somebody else and then mail it to somebody else, and it'll get beat up and then mail it to somebody else and mail it to somebody else. And oh crap. That could be cool. But I don't know. But I also like the ritual of somebody just like taking care of it in the sense of letting it grow old, by your side, and letting it live by your side. So that's also very cool to me. Anyways, that's the story of this painting. It's a bit of a mess, but I think it had to happen. It had to exist this way. And I'm very proud of it. Very proud of like answering that call. I always speak about this, like sometimes you're asked to do something, for your work. And many times it's just, hey, pick yourself up, keep going. This hand needs further rendering. Come on, you could do better. You can paint it better. Just, come on, just concentrate, gather some strength, and just push through. Sometimes it's about those things, but other times it's about saying, hey, break me, like ruin me. And it is in the nature of the act of ruining something that it is going to begin to now live the life that it was supposed to live. But I had to identify that. I had to be okay with that. I had to be excited by that. And then I had to have like, plan ish, because my plan was just like floundering and doing as many things as were stupidly technical as I could do, because this was a mess. But come on, we have to set things in motion. I can't just make something nice and fold it nicely and say, well, now we have to wait 150 years. And next video will be, in 2175. See you soon. No. I had to be the catalyst for time to be sped up a little bit. And I was ready for that job. Jesus Christ, I'm always ready for that job. I have so much courage when I have to ruin things. So I'm especially good at that. So this is where we're at right now. And I'm very happy. Would that have been another cool painting if my, I don't know, if my body and my brain said we're on the right track and just keep painting? Sure. I don't know. It would have been a nice painting for sure. I mean, I want to believe that I was going to be able to make a nice painting. So yeah, I think so. I think I could have made something interesting with that. But was I unhappy? I was very unhappy. So, I think the answer is always like, are you unhappy? Yes. How unhappy are you? So, and where does that unhappiness sort of lie in? Where's the source of that unhappiness? And what can we do? And so this is it. This is the object that that ended up happening. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story behind the fabled Mysterio painting. As I folded back to where we had it initially. And I guess that's it for this video. I think it was a cool video. So thank you for watching. God bless you for listening to all the rambling. And I'll see you in 150 years. That sounds right.